Okay, let's dive right in. Today, we are tackling what is, without a doubt, the single most important geopolitical relationship of our time, the incredible, complex dance between the United States and China. Honestly, this relationship is probably going to define the rest of the 21st century, so let's get into it.
And that quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? What happens between Washington and Beijing doesn't just stay there. Nope. It sends ripples across the entire globe, shaping everything from the world economy to our own security, right down to the technology that's probably in your pocket right now. The stakes just could not be higher.
To figure out where we might be heading, it really helps to look back. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union got dangerously close to the edge, but they managed to pull back with a policy called détente. Now, this wasn't about becoming friends, not at all. It was about managing a rivalry that could have ended the world. So the big question experts are asking now is, can the US and China find their own version of that, a stable way to coexist?
So to really get our heads around this massive topic, we're going to break it down into 4 key areas. First, the nature of the rivalry itself. Then, we'll look at the wars being fought over economics and tech. After that, the military arms race. And finally, we'll try to peek into the future and see how this could all play out.
All right, first up, the rivalry. For decades, the thinking in the US was all about engagement. The hope was that by trading with China and bringing it into the global system, it would become, well, more like the West. That whole era, it's over. Now the official phrase you hear is strategic competition, and that signals a massive shift in how these two giants see each other.
So when experts look at this, they often use 2 different lenses. On one side, you have what's called offensive realism. These folks predict an intense zero-sum clash is pretty much inevitable. But then you've got the defensive realism camp. They argue that, look, neither country can actually conquer the other, so coexistence isn't just a nice idea, it's the only real option. And that's the huge debate happening right now over what comes next.
Okay, let's shift gears to a major battleground in this rivalry, the economic and tech wars. And believe me, this is about way more than just who sells more stuff. This is a flat-out race to control the core technologies that are going to run the 21st century.
You've probably heard this word decoupling thrown around, the idea that the two economies might completely separate, like a total divorce. But what's more likely is something called functional decoupling. The idea here is that you cooperate where you have to, like on climate change, but you fiercely compete and build walls in really sensitive areas, like military tech. It's less of a messy divorce and more of a strategic separation. You might also hear it called de-risking.
And if you want to see what this decoupling looks like in the real world, well, here you go. This isn't just theory. The US is blocking China's access to the most advanced AI chips. In response, China is controlling its exports of things like drone technology. It's a classic tit-for-tat, with each side trying to build its own technological fortress.
Now, what's driving all of this? A huge piece of the puzzle is just sheer economic power. Just look at these projections. By the mid-2030s, the US and Chinese economies are expected to be nearly the exact same size. That convergence is what's really turning up the heat on this competition. When you have 2 giants that big standing toe-to-toe, you're bound to get some friction.
Okay, so we've talked tech, we've talked money, now let's get to the really sharp end of this competition, the military. That shifting economic balance we just saw is fueling a massive military buildup. We're talking about a full-blown arms race, especially in East Asia.
And the numbers here are pretty eye-popping. By 2034, it's projected that China's Navy will have way more ships than the US Navy. I mean, on paper, 435 versus 290 looks like a huge gap. And that number alone is causing a lot of concern in defense circles.
Hold on, is it really that simple? Is this just a numbers game? In a rivalry this complex, the headline numbers almost never tell you the whole story. You've got to look past the quantity and really dig into the quality.
And here's that critical context. Yeah, the US fleet might be smaller, but its ships are generally bigger, more powerful, and more technologically advanced. They can also operate anywhere in the world. And this is a huge one. The US doesn't fight alone. When you factor in the advanced navies of allies like Japan and Australia, the military balance in the Pacific looks a lot more even.
But if there's one number here that's an absolute game changer, it's this one. China is in the middle of a breakneck expansion of its nuclear arsenal. The goal? To have roughly as many warheads as the US and Russia. This isn't just about adding more missiles. It fundamentally changes the entire strategic board. And it makes any potential conflict, especially over a flashpoint like Taiwan, unbelievably dangerous for the whole world.
So you add all of this up, the economic rivalry, the tech wars, the military buildup, and it all leads to the one crucial question, right? Where is this all going? What does the future actually hold? Well, experts tend to see three main ways this could all play out.
Path number one is competitive coexistence. Think of it like a modern version of détente, where the rivalry is managed. Path two is basically more of what we have now, strategic competition, but with the heat turned way up. And then there's the third, and frankly the most dangerous path, a new Cold War, where the world splits into two hostile camps and everyone is forced to pick a side.
And that brings us full circle, right back to that defensive realism idea we talked about earlier. The core of it is that even with all this intense competition, a hot war is not a foregone conclusion. Why? Because the cost would be so catastrophic for absolutely everyone involved that finding a way to coexist isn't just some nice idea, it's a stone-cold strategic necessity.
And really, that's the bottom line. No matter which of those three scenarios unfolds, the single most important thing that both Washington and Beijing have in common is a vital interest in avoiding a direct war. A conflict between these two nuclear-armed, globally connected powers would be a catastrophe on a scale the world has literally never seen.
And so, that leaves us with the central question of our time. Will it be a future of managed competition or one of escalating conflict? The relationship is filled with risk, for sure, but it's also held in check by a shared need to survive. The path forward will be forged by the choices made in both capitals. And that story, well, it's still being written.